It's finally here. 11 years, 2200 films, and Avengers Endgame is out. The apparent conclusion for all the stories Marvel has set up to this point. To avoid potential spoilers, my synopsis will be from materials I've seen in the trailers that's actually been released. At the end of Infinity War, Thanos has collected all the Infinity Stones and decides to cause half of all life to not feel so good. The Avengers pretty much decide this is a bad thing and attempt to get the stones back. Collecting the power gems won't be easy since they're still in possession of the Mad Titan, meaning that the OG gang plus Ant-Man, Nebula, War Machine, Captain Marvel and Rocket have to attempt a suicide mission to retrieve them. Or a heist, if you will. That's as much as I'll say in terms of Endgame's story. My short review is that most comic book fans will have a good time, but I'm not sure how people who casually watch these films would take it. If Endgame and Infinity War were made into a single movie with a classic 3-act structure, the snap and opening of the film would be slap bang at the end of Act 2, meaning that this film is all about that sweet, sweet resolution. If the MCU was a ham sandwich, the ham being the action, bread being the character interaction, and the butter being the character development, we'd find that whilst the ham is very thick, tender, and takes up a large amount of the meal, the bread is the thing holding it all together. Butter is always included, but it's only to stop the ham from falling out when you go to eat it. If Endgame was a ham sandwich, it'd be 2 massive cuts of bread, a healthy dose of butter, and a bit of ham I found to add to the situation. Look, what I'm having for lunch aside, what I'm trying to say is the film is character first and action second. I think it's acceptable in a 2-hour movie, but when your film is a whole 10,860 seconds long, all of this character time could possibly be taken away from the ham. For most die-hard MCU fans, the interaction between characters has always been a highlight of each film, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to love here. I wouldn't really know what to suggest in terms of cutting scenes to save on runtime, but I never found myself wondering what the time was, and the film felt shorter than its 3-hour runtime. However, maybe 1 or 2 scenes could have been a little less goofy, and a bit more, oh my god, the population has been wiped out, maybe we should stop dabbing and playing Fortnite. The main cast all return once again with their A-game, and they're given a lot to work with. Each character has a moment to shine, providing a rock-solid motivation. We've never seen any member of the team deal with failure in this way, so it's interesting to watch. Each person has an arc and a reason to fight here. There was sadly 1 or 2 characters that I felt underused. I assumed that by cutting the cast down to 11 Avengers, we'd see each character have a time to shine. Sadly not. Thanos' character is unfortunately part of these cutbacks. Naturally, after being the protagonist in Infinity War, he had, what we like to call in the biz, a completed arc. There wasn't many more places he could go in the way of snapping people out of existence, but I'd hoped that maybe he'd be challenged on his beliefs a little more. Sadly, he's simply left as a person to fight with an army to kill. Without giving much away, Endgame leans into being a heist film, so it feels very different than previous Avengers installments. That said, I have very strong and negative opinions about several outcomes of the film that border on plot holes, ones that I feel really should have been addressed. Whilst the writers did a good job at wrapping things up and explaining the rules of the new world, death in Marvel films has always been treated as more of a mild inconvenience, killing characters off only for them to be seen minutes later. But I feel this new element goes even further with that, and has the potential to undermine a lot of tension going forward. I don't have much to say on directing in this film. Nothing about the way the film was shot challenged what I expected to see. As always, the action is fantastic, and the Russos did a great job going back and forth between different locations, between Earth, space, and ships, without feeling lost or confused. Ultimately, I think the film is, as always, for the fans. If you're being dragged into this, you'll be lost. If you've not watched almost every single film, you'll be confused. But what I think you'll find at the core is a great last outing for the original 6 Avengers. This film is more about the character journey than having non-stop action. With its slower pace and longer runtime, it may not be for some. It's by no means a letdown, but a bittersweet ending for the people we've grown up with for the last 11 years. Endgame gives you one last chance to say goodbye. If you want to stay and see more from the MCU, there'll be plenty more stories to tell. Right, spoiler time! This is your last chance to get off because I'm just gonna go and rant here, so I'm sorry, but I need to do this. How the fuck can Gamora be rescued and come back, but Black Widow is apparently just now dead? Did Black Widow take the place of Gamora when she jumped? This isn't explained. You can't just ignore that shit. It's a main part of both films, and it's how they get the Mind Stone, so you can't just ignore this. This film goes into time travel. The film explains that if you take an Infinity Stone out of time, it must be placed back. But they don't mention people. They comment that it isn't like Terminator. You can't just go back and kill baby Thanos, because the universe will just fix things once you've returned back to your timeline. but Thanos can come to the future with a whole army and then be killed. Did they have to go back? If not, I'm fine with that. The idea that the universe fixes these holes kind of works if they want to do more films going forward, because it negates the problem of, hey, why didn't they just go back to kill X or to get Y? But when Gamora from the past is now alive in 2023, can Black Widow come back in the same way? Why don't they do that? I mean, Gamora seems to be getting away with it pretty well. You had 3 fucking hours to tell this story. One of you needs to explain this shit, not in an interview or a future film. You did time travel, and you ballsed it up at the last moment. You almost had it.